All right, guys. Hopefully, a quick one today. This is the first wall that's framed, pretty much ready to be tipped up right here. Word of warning, though. So I assume that once all this thing was assembled, it would be able to be racked back and forth if it's not quite square easily. Which most cases, if you're nailing connections, it is. But I think because all these are glued, it doesn't want to go back into shape. And I don't know if you can see it right here, but if we line up the bottom edge flush there, and then right here, you can see that's in probably 3/16 of an inch. So this wall wants to be racked, the top wants to be racked that way, probably about 3/16 of an inch, which on this tiny little wall is pretty significant. So word of warning, when you glue yours up and assemble it and everything, make sure it's pretty square before you walk away from it, before that glue sets, because I'm going to have to push this right back and fasten it. So our next step here is our sheathing. So we've got a little sheathing panel here. We're going to tack it on right flush with this top edge. And then this is when I'm going to have to force this over to be nice and square. So we're going to flush it up because we know one of these corners is square. We're going to nail it on flush with one edge here. Push this over so that it's flush right here and nail this edge off. And that'll keep our wall frame square. So when we stand it up, it's nice and plumb. So that's about it. Normally, I'd like to cut out the window opening or the door opening before I tack it on. But because this thing needs to be racked and everything, it won't lay out in the right spot. So I'm going to have to back up and do that afterward. So I'll show you that now. All right, so I glued around the perimeter and then basically every other stud just to get some glue on there. I'm nice and flush right here, and I've got about 6 nails across the top. So now you can see the bottom of my wall is sticking out some. We know this corner is square, so I've got to force this over and nail off this side leg right here, and that should keep me square. So now both my top and my side are square. That means this whole wall is square. So when we tip it up on the deck, we know this side here is going to be plumb straight up and down. Looks like I had a couple little blowouts, so I'll remove those nails, re-nail it right in the middle, and that'll be good. So our next step is nailing off the rest of it. So we can mark the center of our studs with a square, because if everything's nice and square, we know if we're holding a square on here and we mark it, that's plumb, so we should be in the middle of the framing. And then we'll mark and cut out the door opening, and we'll trim the excess off the bottom. Okay, so, every other stud, if you get 4 nails right down there, that's enough to hold this on until the glue sets up. On the back side, you shouldn't have been blowing through any of your studs, because if you've got this on square right here and your wall's not racked, and then you use your square to plumb down, you should be able to find all of these studs. Hopefully your stud layout is the same top and bottom and none of these studs are cockeyed. That's what would cause a little blowout there. So full-scale construction, you'd cross-tape your wall, make sure everything's square. You'd nail on probably 1 sheet of plywood across the bottom, and then a half up here because you want to stagger all your joints on your plywood. So a sheet would be like this would be 1 4x8 sheet, and this would be a half a 4x4, and that way those joints aren't stacked up right over top of each other all the way across. Remember, full-scale construction, the nails you're going to use are going to be 8-penny ring shank nails. The nailing pattern I've always used is 6 inches on center on the panel edges and 8 inches on center in the field. So that's 9 nails on the edges of the panel and 7 edges in the field. That's about it. Next, what you do in the full-scale construction is you'd cut out all your openings. You could use a tape measure to find your openings and cut them while it's laying down on the deck. Or once you tip the wall up, you could drill some holes in the corner of each opening, then connect those dots and cut it out with a skill saw and a sawzall while it's standing up. I'm just going to cut mine now using a utility knife right through the back edge here. All right, cutting out our door opening. Make sure you got a nice sharp blade in your utility knife. Take your time here. It's going to take a little bit of patience, but just score that repeatedly. Don't try to cut it all at once. Just keep scoring and you'll eventually break through. All right, and that's it. It's not the neatest cut. Like I said, it would have been easier if this wall had been all square and I could have just drawn it on there and then cut it out and then installed this on top. But it works. So this wall is ready to go. I would set this aside. I wouldn't install it on here yet just because it's going to make things difficult working around it and you might knock it off. So set this aside and see if you can give your other walls a crack here, building those. Remember, exterior walls first, and then we'll stand those up, do our double top plates, and then we'll work on the interior partitions.